I'm a researcher and I'm facilitator at Tales of Tinning. You are once again welcome. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to share your questions on the chat. We will be more than happy to respond to them at the end of the webinar. I'm now just going to quickly hand over to my colleague, Steph Snell, for the framing of the webinar. Over to you, Steph.
Steph, you're on mute.
Can you unmute? There we go. Sorry. Maybe it goes with the white hair. Hello, everybody, and as Siabata said, welcome. Thank you for being here, and it's in this time of filled with promise and dread, and AI is in the middle of it. So on the promise side, it brings access to information, that scale, the efficiency, innovation, and then there are real risks that come with it. Amplification of hate, algorithmic biases, manipulation of public discourse, democratic instability. So, sorry, just give me a second. So, today, I want to narrow this conversation and focus on what we've actually tested and learned from a Global South perspective. So we've been working in high-risk narrative environments, the Tales of Turning team, for several years now, using machine learning systems and focusing on harmful narratives such as gender-based violence, xenophobia, racism, bullying, etc. Much of the work has been grounded in South Africa, where social division, political contestation, and digital mobilization intersect powerfully. This matters because most AI governance conversations are dominated by the global North frameworks, yet the impact of harmful narratives is often acute in fragile and unequal societies like from whence we come. So early on, we were looking for solutions. Obviously, better platform regulation, improved algorithmic transparency, stronger legislation, etc. But through experimentation, we realized something important, that algorithms curate, that platforms control visibility, that algorithms shape exposure, legislation moves slowly, and enforcement is unlikely. And harmful narratives adapt faster than regulations do. So for us, there was a shift to focus on users instead of concentrating on platforms and policy. The real people participating in the digital discourse. Why this matters is that users are not just consumers, they also co-creators of narrative ecosystems. They influence amplification, they can resist manipulation, they can interrupt harm, they initiate reflection, growing critical thinking. This reframes AI not as a technical problem, but a social and civic one as well. So in 2021, during the local government elections, we tested this user-centered methodology. So instead of incident-based reporting, monitoring, etc., we conducted user-focused trials. We observed patterns of behavior. We tested interventions in live digital discourse environments. This was not theoretical. It was applied research in a political sensitive context. So since then, two more research efforts have refined the model that we've been developing and strengthened its methodology. We now have a structured evidence-based framework that we use to create AI agents. This matters because it enables proactive engagement. It shifts power back towards communities. It creates room for localized intervention. It strengthens civic resilience. There's also strategic value in user empowerment, in narrative literacy, in community-level intervention models, in applied experiments in high-risk environments. All this is scalable, adaptable, and measurable. So we're not powerless with AI systems. Your engagement shapes the ecosystem. Collectively, users' behavior can alter amplification patterns. So a key insight for this work is that sustainable responses to harmful AI-driven narratives must combine both technical governance and human agency. If we only regulate platforms, we miss half the equation. If we only empower users without understanding other algorithms, we miss the other half. So the future is in integrating both. So empowering people may be one of the most underinvested and high leverage strategies available. With this, I would like to hand you over to my fellow director, Jenna Lee, and Strugnell, and she will take you further down this rabbit hole that we've been in for a while. Thanks, Jenna Lee.
Thanks so much, Steph. That was a really amazing introduction, and thank you everyone for being here with us today. It's really lovely to have people from around the world here. So Steph has really shared this intersection between a really deep understanding of people and a human-centered approach, and combining that with AI and technology. So at Tales of Turning, really the heart of what we do is understanding people and taking a narrative therapy approach where individuals and communities are the experts of their own lives with the skills and knowledge to influence their problems. So what we do is we use social media listening tools to pull in all the data from public social media. And in this case, it's focused around gender-based violence. So this is a really way of deeply listening to the voices of thousands and thousands of people. It's unfiltered and it's in near real time. So we're working with big data. Once we scrape all this data from public social media, we then do a thematic analysis on it, which is really fascinating. So you can see all the nuances of the conversation. You can see the root causes of gender-based violence, what gender norms are underlying this, what different factors are influencing gender-based violence, how are people talking about it, and how are they grappling with these different issues. So a recent example of this, which everyone that's registered for the webinar will get a copy of, is that we did social media listening research into gender norms among youth of South Africa, where we analyzed over 33,000 pieces of content from social media. And this gives us really unique insights. Not only are we working in the different South African languages, we're also looking at the colloquial phrases that people are using when they're discussing different issues related to gender-based violence. So we can see the way they are talking about the different issues. And when we're hosting in-person or online dialogues, creating social media content, creating campaigns, and developing programs and interventions, we can really meet people where they're at. Another amazing aspect of this tool is we can see how the narrative shifts over time. So it really gives us real-time snapshots into the conversation. What causes spikes in conversation? What causes the conversation to shift? So it's really these nuanced perspective that adds depth to the work that we're doing. So based on our subject matter expertise doing this work, literature reviews, and social media listening research, we're looking into some of the root causes of gender-based violence. The ones that I'm discussing now are by no means an exhaustive list. It's just some of the root causes that are, we could talk about the root causes, spend days talking about it. So this is just a snapshot of some of the root causes that are relevant to the webinar today. So one of the root causes that comes up very strongly in the social media listening research is trauma. So cycles of intergenerational trauma where boys and men who have faced violence are then carrying on this pattern because of socialized norms, and there's also neuroscience around it, why violence perpetuates itself. And there is this need for mental health support and for men to take responsibility for their behavior, because of course they're still responsible, and to reach out for healing. So that is one of the root causes we've been looking at. Another root cause which the social media listening research focused very strongly on was gender norms. So these are often socialized beliefs. So people grow up in a community where it may be normal for women to be in the kitchen, and that is a belief they've just grown up with without questioning that belief. So looking at really all those underneath factors, and this relates very strongly to the mis and disinformation. So there are coordinated networks of mis and disinformation spreading unequal gender norms and really enhancing these unequal gender norms that are one of the root causes of gender-based violence. So it's really important that we address this mis and disinformation and hate speech, because it's exacerbating and it's amplifying these unequal gender norms, and there are coordinated networks of disinformation that's doing it. So this webinar really focuses on that piece of how can we address the mis and disinformation that is spreading hatred towards women online. And as I think we all know, this is really a growing crisis that is targeting women. So then what do we do? So we know these root causes, and we know that social media is contributing to this. So of course, on the ground, interventions are absolutely vital. They always will be. But South Africans are spending, on average, 3.2 hours on social media a day. So social media is really influencing, having offline consequences. And there's a lot of research of how these unequal gender norms and violence and hate speech online lead to offline violence. So how are we going to also impact and address this online space? So we've taken, so Stefan Snell, who you heard from before me, and Jeffrey Mamputa are the two other directors of Tales of Turning, and their background is in conflict mediation. So they are very, very experienced conflict mediators, and my background is in psychology. So we've taken this deep understanding of people and how you would do dialogues in person and adapted that to an online digital dialogue facilitation methodology. So actually going online onto social media and engaging with people. The one part of it is deepening the conversation. So when it is someone who's grown up with a gender norm that they've just never questioned, and they post it on social media, we first start by asking them, what makes you believe this? What makes you think this? To really first understand their perspective and where they're coming from, and make them feel seen and heard like you would do in an offline dialogue. And then asking them curious questions to get them to reflect on these harmful beliefs. So it's really deepening the conversation, promoting self-reflection, critical thinking, and getting people to engage differently and more constructively on social media. We've done a lot of work in teaching men how to have these conversations with other men, both online and offline, to really get men to reflect if they are posting misogynistic content. Another aspect of this is amplifying positive messaging. So we work with, as I said right from the start, communities are really the experts on this. Community-based organizations, we know they've on the forefront of preventing gender-based violence in their community. And they hold extraordinary knowledge around both their communities and gender-based violence prevention. And as I said, that on-the-ground work will always be essential. But given how much time people are spending on social media, how do we take that work that they're doing on the ground and their knowledge and get that to influence social media? So we train community-based organizations, peer educators, we've worked with taxi drivers, university students, and trained them to use this methodology to co-create new narratives that are more helpful around gender norms, and to also amplify their knowledge on social media. So we're amplifying the positive messaging on social media. Then where this focus of this webinar lies is on mis and disinformation. So there is now prolific mis and disinformation around gender online that is having far-reaching consequences, including backlash against feminist organizations, women leaders, women journalists. And so we developed a methodology to specifically address mis and disinformation. So when it is disinformation, we know that often the users is part of a paid coordinated network. So how do we stop this disinformation from spreading? Because we know disinformation is designed to make people angry, to make them afraid, which makes people just quickly share disinformation. So it really spreads like wildfire, and it spreads faster than facts. So we developed the methodology called social truth queries, which is going on these posts and saying things like, where did you get this information from? What makes you believe this? Are you for real? Is this the truth? So it's really asking a question. You can see here that we are encouraging people to self-reflect, to critically engage with the information. So we're not saying we know the facts, we're right. We are saying, look into this information more before you just believe it. What I love about this methodology is that there's actually neuroscience behind it. When people are triggered emotionally, like by anger and fear, it shuts down the critical thinking part of their brain. And when you ask a question, it actually switches back on that critical thinking part of the brain. So basically, it creates this short pause for people to think twice and decide for themselves whether they want to share this information or not. So as I said, that aspect of social truth queries is really the focus of this webinar. As Steph mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we've done 3 studies to prove that this methodology works. So it's really now evidence-based. One of the studies was with the University of Washington, and I really love this graph on the screen because it shows how this methodology just calms the conversation. So the blue is where the social truth query is applied, and the gray is the control group. So you can see how it decreases people from resharing the content, trusting its accuracy, and believing the content. The third study we recently did was in the South African elections around mis and disinformation. And the research showed that it decreases the spread of mis and disinformation by up to 82%. So we are very excited about this evidence. And again, everyone that's registered for the webinar will get a copy of those studies so you can go deeper into the research and the findings. So what we've done, as I mentioned earlier, is we train peer educators, community-based organizations, taxi drivers, university students in this methodology and how they can use this to prevent mis and disinformation in their space. And that brings us to the use of AI. So I'm going to just very briefly go into the process, and then Siabata and Barent will go more into the technical aspects and how we tested the AI. So as I've spoken about now, really we spent a lot of time understanding the narrative through literature reviews, from subject matter expertise and our experience working in gender-based violence prevention, from the social media listening research and working with big data. Our team spends a lot of time online, dialoguing online, having conversations. also finding keywords and collecting sample content. So we really got a deep understanding of the narrative and collected sample content to develop and train the AI. So that content was used to train the AI agents. And then we went into the process of testing the AI agents, which Siabata and Barent will go deeper into. So what I want to say, which is very important with the AI agent, we have the trained digital dialogue facilitators who are volunteers who then monitor the AI agent and decide which posts to post. So there's always a human in the loop by volunteer trained digital dialogue facilitators. So the combination between people and AI is allowing us to now increase our impact even further. What I also think is very important to talk about is the ethics. And I put the heart in the center because AI is very scary. It's developing at a rapid scale. It's being used for a lot of harm. And so we risk, if we just push it away as something scary and don't use it, we risk not inputting into the development of AI in an ethical way that can support social good. And the heart is in the center because everything should be human-centered and have kindness and care at the center of the development of AI. So these ethics are taken from how we developed it and the ethics we came up with, as well as SPRI has amazing ethics they've developed, and some UN agencies and other organizations. So also, we are still in the piloting phase, so we are not in the implementation phase. So we're still working very carefully with the ethics to develop this in a way that will uphold these ethics. So one of the ethics, which is really emphasized by the care and kindness, is prioritize safety and do no harm. As I also emphasize, there's a human in the loop, so the AI is not just doing its own thing. As Siabata and Barent will show you, the AI is finding the mis and disinformation, suggesting content, and then a trained and vetted and mentored volunteer dialogue facilitator decides whether to post it or not. Data privacy and confidentiality is very important, so never entering any sensitive information or personal confidential information into AI. As I already said, human-centered and care is very important. And then an inclusive design. We've really had a diverse team that has got us to this point. We have a very diverse South African team. We also have had 16 interns who are amazing young leaders from across Africa inputting into the development of what we've done. And contextual use is very important. This goes for all the work that we do, is that, so this was specifically is being developed in a South African context. We are looking at implementing it in different contexts, and we always work with a local organization. So local organizations, they are the experts of their context. So we work absolutely closely when we want to adapt this to other contexts, and we have really good relationships with other organizations, so it's relevant to the context, the language, and the norms of that context. And then additionally, what I mentioned before is this is still in the pilot stage. We will still, like all our work, even our research, our dialogue facilitation, we always go into a stakeholder engagement process where we work with a group, a reference group, to go through everything very thoroughly and make sure that it's useful and not harmful. So with that, I will hand over to Siabata to take you more into the testing process. Over to you, Siabata.
Thank you, Jenna Lee. As stated by my colleague, Jenna Lee, I will be taking you through the process of manually testing the AI agent, which can also be tested automatically but due to the early development stages of the AI agent, we followed these steps to test it manually. The first step was that we formulated a keywords list around gender discrimination and gender-based violence, which also led us to conversations on online platforms that highlighted conversations on gender-based violence, that highlighted misogyny and misinformation on gender-based violence. And then we did the following step, which was to use the keywords on social media and browse through the provided information. Afterwards, we copied the post as is, and then we pasted it on the AI agent, and then we classified the tweet, and then it will automatically give you a response after classifying the tweet. The response that you can then at this point use your human discretion, either if it's relevant to the post that you shared or if it's not relevant. As you can see on the screen, the post that we had was portraying misinformation, which could easily be turned into hate speech or disinformation. And the post, the agent was able, the AI agent was able to also give us a confidence level to say that it is highly confident with the response that it gave us. So we can manually take the response and then paste it on the tweet. But if you do it automatically, you can set it to automatically respond to the tweets directly. It's also important to mention that the agent also gives you an opportunity for human intervention. For example, by the confidence level, if the confidence level is low, it then means that it needs human intervention. That's why you need to use your discretion on either to take the response or not to take the response. And then if it's high, that's where you are certain with the response that you received to say that this is the response, I can paste it there. And if it's high, you can also just set it up to automatically respond to the post. You can also feed into the system, into the AI agent, to train the AI agent as to how it should respond to some of the conversations that are on online platforms around gender-based violence, which are similar to the post that we have on the screen. Thank you, Jenny. As a dialogue facilitator with experience and many years on the field, I found the tool really helpful, and I'm excited about it as it makes dialogue facilitation more efficient and easier, ensuring that we are able to address misinformation on online platforms at a huge scale. The agent really helped with testing hundreds of posts in just 2 days, which could have normally took more than 3 weeks or without the AI agent. So that shows that it is highly efficient. And from the hundreds of posts that I tested on online platforms, only 3 posts were highlighted as irrelevant because they required human intervention. One of the 3 posts was due to a grammatical error, which led to the post being misinterpreted. The tool also simplifies English in a way that it has depicted it on the post. So it ensures that the language that has been used meets people where they are, and people are able to engage or to understand the response that has been given by the post. It is also essential to mention that I at no point had technical issues while using the post. The tool never broke down, or I had no bad experiences or difficulties with using the post. And I think with using the tool, and I think the tool can also further be used to train dialogue facilitators in different fields so that they are able to use the tool to effectively address misinformation on online platforms and disinformation and hate speech on online platforms. I'm now going to hand over to Barend to take you through the process of building the tool. Over to you, Barend.
Thank you very much. Just sharing my screen. So you've heard the problem set and the opportunities we have here. So the opportunity is we have strong, robust proof that social queries can actually help address mis and disinformation around gender-based violence. You have a couple of problems in this set. So there's millions of information flowing through social media. You have a very specific way that you need to address these queries according to the research. And that is why we decided to build an AI agent. This is, as mentioned, a beta tool, and we really need your support to take it to the next steps. But I'm going to talk a little bit about how we built the tool and just the opportunities and I want to share my excitement for how we actually built this tool, because I think it's a fascinating journey that we walked along. So for me, it's a really good time right now to start thinking about how you can use AI, specifically in where we're moving away from you have to be a developer with programming experience to a place where domain experts can actually that understand the underlying problem set that you want to address, can actually prototype and develop a really large part of the problem set, and get their ideas into working much quicker and effectively and cost effectively than previously. So you can now prototype in hours, not in weeks. A small team with AI expertise can do quite a lot when it is built on top of that domain expertise, which we've done here with the research proof. You can have a big social impact, and yeah, again, I just recommend start exploring. So let me show you the process that we followed. So we had the research support. So it all started with the research. That research was then given to AI. We mostly use Claude in this case, but we used a mixture of agent and AI tools to build this tool. But we actually gave the entire problem set and the research to solve the problem set to the AI, and it built the framework for what tools should actually be built. It identified Twitter as a low-hanging fruit just because it's easy to get Twitter data, but you can imagine doing this on other data sets as well. It built a Twitter collection agent, actually multiple ones. One that collects data directly from the Twitter API so that you can pull in tweets, and one that it proposed looking at Grok API to actually gather data through Grok, and we found success in both of its tools. It also built in inside of the actually dashboard, you can add in additional AI tools. If you don't like ChatGPT, for example, you can build in Gemini or Grok or whichever AI agent you want to have doing the collection or the classification of the tool. The next step then was it built a classifier, and this is the one that looks at the tweets coming in after they have been identified as potentially containing mis and disinformation around gender-based violence, and it gave it the confidence score that Sibata talked about and said, yes, we think this is one, or no, we think it's not one, and also created a recommendation on this is, according to the research, how I believe the human in the loop should respond. That is then output into a easy usable, lightweight dashboard that the team can use to ingest data, get recommendations, and then take action to actually address the gender-based violence after that. So just a little bit more about the data. So we took real-world examples of positive and negatively identified mis and disinformation around gender-based violence in South Africa that was identified by hand by the team. That is then given to the AI as raw data. Here's your training data. Here's positive examples, negative examples. The tool then goes through them, learns the patterns in them, and automatically created a classifier that could split them up. Furthermore, it split it up into categories. So the AI agent actually recommended categories for classification that fell a little bit outside of the categories that we saw in the research paper. So now we were at a point where you can choose, do we follow the categories in the research paper, or do we allow the AI to use its things? And that is still in beta to be discussed, but it found interesting additional categories which might be interesting for further classification. This was then also fully built and deployed by the AI itself. So it was hosted online. The database connections were made by the AI itself. All of these steps has a human just making sure that the AI is doing the right thing, connecting it to the right. Does it go to AWS or does it go to Google GCP? But the workflow management and actually getting it executed is all managed by the AI, which makes it quite convenient for a small team to run. We are at this inflection point. So before you had to write all the code manually, you had these big teams needing to search through the thousands and thousands of tweets, hire your data team to classify them, work through trial and error to get their systems up. What the workflow is we used here, and the workflow that I want you guys to take forward, is you describe a problem, and as the domain expert, you understand your problem extremely well, and you iterate and experiment with the AI until you get examples of ways that it could solve that. And then you get, with a core set of a small team of technical experts, you can do quite a lot here. It's very important for this iterative conversation. The AI, through the process, got stuck. You have to treat it as a colleague, where it's still in its infancy, it's still learning. But if you're patient with it, as you are with any colleague, you can get quite a lot done. I mentioned the full process was AI orchestrated, and it was multiple. So it's multiple AI agents doing work in all of the sections of this tool that we discussed. So what this means for you is you can now start with a real world problem. You seed that with your human insight expertise. You iterate fast through the problems, and you think in workflows. Like the AI helped me build the workflow here, but you think in, I have research, it goes to data collection, and then with this small team, NGOs and other organizations can now do cost-effective prototyping, as we have demonstrated here, that it can actually be used in real-world domains. I believe it gives us a very cost-effective way to now have real-world good social impact. So just to what to remember, take away. I believe the workflow matters here. I've said this multiple times now, but it's the human thinking combined to the AI execution that I think is the magic bullet we have here. You start small with a core idea, and then you can start iterating on that idea and design the workflow from there. It does break, and it very much at this stage need human oversight. It can hallucinate and come up with strange recommendations, and this is also why Jenna Lee spoke about the ethics around this. So throughout this process, we made very sure that we review not only the output of the tool, but also the code that a tool is running, so that it does not do things that is unexpected. Be curious. I think we're at an inflection point at the moment, and if you want to talk more about it, my details are there. Thank you. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Warrant. So I just we'll have a few minutes to answer some questions at the end. So please, if you have a question, put your question in the chat. As I said previously, everyone will receive an email with all the different resources and studies we've talked about. So if you have further questions after the email, you can also reach out to us with further questions if we don't get to your questions now. So I wanted to speak about what next. So we are really excited about the potential of this to really reach people at scale and to really amplify the impact of the work that we've been developing over the last few years. So we are busy fundraising to implement the AI and to build new features that it needs. This is still the pilot version. So we're fundraising to fully implement it and to build in the new features that we need. We are also fundraising to adapt it to different contexts. So we are looking at doing this in different countries and different contexts in collaboration with the strong partners that we have in those contexts. And then also adapting it to mis and disinformation in different narratives. So mis and disinformation related to elections. South African elections are coming up, and we're looking at adapting it to mis and disinformation to protect the integrity of the elections. And then we are also looking at adapting it to mis and disinformation around xenophobia, climate change, sexual health and reproductive rights, and mis and disinformation around the LGBTQI plus community. We know in all these narratives that the disinformation is really prolific and very, very harmful and leading to real world like policy changes and violence and all of this. So it's really something that needs to be addressed. And in conjunction to developing the AI, we are also carrying on training more volunteer dialogue facilitators in this methodology. So I'm now just going to go to some of the questions. Let me just get that on the screen. Maybe let me stop sharing. So there's a really great question about how can organizations be part of the trainings? And so we're all about collaboration. So we would love to collaborate with more organizations and train more organizations in this methodology. So please reach out to us. I see, Caroline, you did put your email address there so we can be in touch. What we often do is work together with organizations that want the training to raise funds for the training, and then we go ahead and implement the training. And so here's another question. Twitter X were mentioned. Is this being used on other platforms? And are the other platforms somehow involved? So I'll start by answering, and then maybe Barend would like to carry on. So with the digital dialogue facilitation training, when we've trained peer educators, community-based organizations, university students, they're applying the digital dialogue facilitation to all their social media channels. So they applying it to WhatsApp groups in their community, to TikTok, to Facebook, to all the social media platforms where they are involved. So that's the actual human dialogue facilitation. For the development of the AI, we focused on collecting content from Twitter, and that's what that is based on. Barend, would you like to add anything?
The tool itself is very platform agnostic in the classification side of it. It's in the ingestion side of it that we focused on Twitter first. So pulling data off Twitter is, for example, easier than pulling data off Facebook. We are working at finding data partners at the moment. So if you know people that want to give us data for free, let us know. But there's no reason why we can't add all social media platforms into this. And you either do that in an automatic way or with data partners or by hand for some of the harder to reach platforms. In South Africa specifically, I think the next stage we should be focusing on Facebook, because how integrated that is into South African society. Some of the more closed platforms like WhatsApp would be a little bit more difficult. But you need partnerships to make those happen.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. So thank you everyone for joining here today. I just put so we've got a digital change maker WhatsApp group where there are people from around the world. At the moment, we've got 280 members. We share resources there. We host dialogues. Siabata, could you put my contact information in the chat, please? So we host dialogues there. So please join the group. You just need to click on that WhatsApp link and we can stay in touch. Siabata is about to put my contact information in the chat. So please reach out to me. We are looking for any collaborations. We collaborate globally. and partnerships, and also thinking partners. I know everyone that's attending this workshop has amazing knowledge and expertise to share to really strengthen this work. And then we're also fundraising to take this further. And in addition to that, after this webinar, you will also get an email with the recording, with the studies and all the materials that you can then go through. And from that, you will also be able to obviously respond and ask any questions. We'd love to hear more from you. So I think all that's really left is to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. And it's been really lovely to spend this time with you, and we look forward to continuing the discussion. And then also thank you for the team that's put so much effort into developing this. As you can see, it's from really years of in-depth work, really centering the heart of what we're doing is around psychology, conflict mediation, and a deep care for people. And then looking at how can we use social media and technology to amplify that and to amplify the impact of all the incredible work that non-profit organizations are doing on the ground. So thank you so much, everyone. And I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your day and that we hear from you further.